Someone asks you for a favor. You don't want to do it. You can feel the no forming in your chest, clear and simple. And then you hear yourself say yes. But the real answer is far stranger than weakness or politeness. Saying no is not a personality flaw. It is not something only people pleasers struggle with. Underneath that single word is a piece of machinery so old and so consistent that it shows up the same way in classrooms, offices, and first dates. To understand why your mouth keeps agreeing to things your mind has already rejected, you have to look at what a simple request actually does to the human brain. In 1966, researchers Jonathan Friedman and Scott Fraser went door to door asking homeowners to put a small sign in their windows supporting safe driving. Almost everyone agreed. Weeks later, a different request arrived. Would they allow a large, ugly billboard-sized sign on their lawn? Among people never approached before, almost no one agreed. Among people who had already said yes to the small sign, agreement jumped dramatically. Nothing about the second request became less absurd. What changed was the person being asked. That experiment introduced the foot-in-the-door technique, and it reveals something uncomfortable about identity. Once you say yes to something small, your brain quietly updates its story about who you are. Saying no to the bigger request would mean contradicting that story, and the mind will go to remarkable lengths to avoid contradicting itself. Why does consistency matter so much to your sense of self? Psychologist Robert Cialdini identified commitment and consistency as one of the most powerful forces in human persuasion. A small action creates a mental commitment. Backing out doesn't just cost you the favor, it costs you a piece of your self-image. Most people will avoid that internal cost more urgently than they will avoid an unwanted task. Commitment is only half the machinery, though. The other half happens in milliseconds before you have time to think at all. A coworker hands you their extra lunch, a small thing, unrequested. 2 days later, they ask you to cover their shift. You feel an odd tug, almost a debt, even though a sandwich and a shift have nothing to do with each other. This is reciprocity, possibly the oldest social rule humans developed. Cialdini's research found it works even when the original favor was unwanted or deliberately manufactured by someone trying to influence you. Reciprocity does not require a real debt. It only requires the feeling of one. So if this machinery is this consistent, why does refusing still feel hard, rather than something you can simply reason your way around? Social psychologist Vanessa Bones has spent her career studying that exact gap. Her research consistently finds that people dramatically overestimate the social cost of refusing. In her studies, people predicted that strangers asked to do something awkward, like handing over a phone, would mostly refuse. Far more people complied than anyone expected. The fear of seeming rude looms much larger in the mind than it does in the actual fallout that follows a simple no. The discomfort you feel before refusing someone is a miscalculation your brain is making in real time, shaped by a nervous system built for small groups where saying no to the wrong person once carried real risk. Here is the twist. None of this machinery is inherently sinister. It evolved because cooperation kept early humans alive. A small band survived by trading favors and avoiding people who flaked on commitments. The same wiring that makes you agree to cover a shift is the wiring that once held tribes together through famine. You are not broken when you struggle to say no. You are running ancient cooperative software in a world built to exploit it. That exploitation is everywhere once you notice it. Free trials lean on reciprocity. Negotiators who ask for something outrageous first, then compromise down to what they wanted all along, lean on commitment and consistency. Even a friend who opens with, "Can I ask you something small?" is quietly making the next request harder to refuse. None of this leaves you powerless, though. Bones' research points to something useful. Naming the mechanism weakens it. Once you recognize your discomfort is an inflated estimate, the gap between what you fear and what actually happens starts to shrink. A polite no rarely ends relationships the way it feels like it might. The next time you feel that tug to agree before you finish thinking, ask yourself one question. Is this request actually connected to anything you owe, or is it simply sequenced to feel that way? Often the debt isn't a debt at all, it's a sensation, manufactured by old wiring and sharpened by whoever is asking. So when someone asks you for a favor you don't want to do, and the no forms clearly in your chest before your mouth says something else, you are not weak, and you are not too polite. You are standing where ancient instinct meets modern persuasion, and the real answer was never strange. It was simply older and more deliberate than you ever expected.